And as we said last time, it's doing this weird thing again. Is that the way you guys really look?
Oh.
I didn't do anything. How's that, Izzy? If you want to know what you're going to look like in 5 years, take a peek. Okay, I'm just ignoring that. There'll be sound, right? Maybe can I turn off the... You can't turn off the video, right? You can't, just do it like that. I don't have to see myself.
Press the camera option.
There we go. Okay. We started the second half, so to speak, of the Maamer, where the Rebbe is going to explain the inyan of ledodi li at length. Ledodi li, of course, is the revelation of Yud Gimel Yisrachim. We just finished explaining Ani L'Dodi, as you recall, right? And let's read the last 3 lines of Ois Vav on page Shin Samach Zayin. V'zeu shaveda de Elul Ani L'Dodi. And again, that Ani, that new font, means the Rebbe when the Rebbe was editing the Maamer, he underlined it, he circled it, whatever. That what's Elul? The revelation of who Ani Amiti is, who I really am, right? And that's triggered by saying the Yud Gimel Midas Rachmim, Kel Rachum V'Chanun. Kel Yisrael is Yud Sar Kel. This should all bring back memories. That the most powerful governing power in us is that name Kel, or Ein Sof Baruch Hu Atzmei Mamish Shelamayla Mishtalshalos, the words of the Rebbe. So the Aved of Elul is who Ani L'Dodi, the revelation of who Ani really is. And what does Ani want to do? Once there's a revelation of who the real Ani is, so then L'Dodi, I want the Eibishter. Even though after everything is said and done, and we discussed the fact that really it's not simply an asinus koyach, it's not only an empowerment, but rather Elul is also an arousal from above, and we do have to explain why, therefore, Ani L'Dodi comes before Dodi Li, right? Because chronologically it certainly seems that Dodi Li is first, the revelation of the Yud Gimel Yisrachim happens first, and then we respond, Ani L'Dodi, that triggers in us an appreciation of our essential Ani, who I really am, and I go to Dodi. Right, so even though the Yisaris even though the Yisaris is based on a revelation from above, but still the characteristic of the Aved is Ani L'Dodi, because it's a revelation of who Ani really is. Ki Agilui Shelamayla, the revelation from above, who Rak Siba, it's only a reason Shal Yodai, that as a result of it, Mizgala Rotzen Apnimi Da'adam, it's revealed the true desire of the person. So there's still an emphasis on our Aved. Okay, and on us, in general. Still have to understand the order. That the Rebbe hasn't explained. The Yesh Lamer. Now, we read this one line on Wednesday, but we didn't get very far past it. The Yesh Lamer. Al Yadei Shagilu the Yud Gimel Yisrachim Me'erer. By virtue of the fact that the revelation of the Yud Gimel Yisrachim arouses or megala and reveals Harotzen Apnimi Yisrael, the inner desire of the Jew, Sharotzen Yisrael Belokus, and the Rotzen of the Jew is an Elokus Levishaim Mushurashim Ba'atzmus, because the Jew is rooted in Atzmus, which we spent a great deal of time talking about on Wednesday. Nasa Ilui B'Yud Gimel Yisrachim. Now the Rebbe is going to say something quite astounding. There's an elevation of the Yud Gimel Midas Rachmi, meaning that level of godliness that's called the Yud Gimel Midas Rachmi, that level of godly revelation, which exists because the Kadosh Baruch Hu wants it to exist, not because it has to exist. And what's the purpose of that level of godly revelation? To arouse in you and I an appreciation of who we really are. And the revelation of that is essentially an Elul, though it's there all the time, right? We say Yud Gimel Midas Rachmi every day in davening. Right? And except those days when everybody's very excited not to say it because we're not saying Tachnun, everybody gets very excited when we don't say it. Right? Maybe we should think otherwise. Right? So that you and I, through our Aveda, can bring about an elevation in this incredible level of godly reality called the Yud Gimel Midas Rachmi. You and I can elevate godliness? Guess so. Let's see. Va'inyan hu. Dezeh shehabriya hu bishvil Yisrael. The fact that creation is for the sake of the Jewish people, Bereishis bara Elokim es hashamayim v'saaretz, base Reishis, for the sake of two Reishises, Rashi says. Rashi and Chumash, downtown Judaism. This is not something esoteric, right? Bereishis, two Reishises. What are the two Reishises? Torah and Yisrael. And Rashi brings the Medrash, and the Medrash brings pasukim. So since the creation is for the sake of Yisrael, hakavana b'zeh, what does that mean? Chassidus emphasizes something very, very interesting about Pshat in that Medrash. Most people, in general, when people learn that Medrash or see that idea, what do they think? And it's perfectly reasonable. And this is how it's discussed in most contexts. What does that mean? That the world was created for us, that we are, the world was created in an imperfect state, and we are challenged to fix that world and elevate it and illuminate it. Right? That sound familiar? That sounds pretty familiar, right? That's the way Yidden look at Olam Hazeh. Right? Okay. So this imperfect world was created, it's perfectly imperfect, and our job is to illuminate it. Allow godliness to be revealed in it and shine through everything in it. Okay, that's true. But in the process of making that world, the Eibishter also created, wrong word, but it's hard to find the right word. The Eibishter also brings into being, created happens to be a technical term, the world of creation. Creation relates to some state of reality that seems separate from HaKadosh Baruch Hu on some level. Right? He isn't, but it seems to be. Right? It's what you and I refer to as yesh. Right? Something seemingly separate. It's not separate, but it seems to be. Right? So the Eibishter brings into being all sorts of different levels of infinite godly light that are the pathway from the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu down to sparrows and squirrels. And there's a lot of things happening in that process. And a lot of what happens in that process is infinite godly light. Okay. Bottom line, why do those levels of infinite godly light exist? How they serve their function in the context of this, we don't know. But why are those infinite levels of godliness in existence? Because God wants them to be, and somehow they're part of the process of HaKadosh Baruch Hu creating the world. So that when you and I do something that affects the world positively, we are also affecting those levels of godliness positively. Because the purpose of their existence is to end up down in that ultimately reality and existence should be revealed in a finite form in this world, and that you and I, in the context of that finitude, should fight through the hiddenness and find godliness in it and reveal godliness in it. So all those levels of unbelievable infinite revelation are also part of the desire to get to that place, called here, where we are, Olam Hazeh. So when Chazal say, B'shvil Yisrael, Nivra Olam, it's not just the physical world. All states of reality exist for the purpose of getting to a place where you and I can serve God. Because that's ultimately what he's interested in, for whatever reason. Why he wants you and I to serve him? No clue. That's why Chazal say nisave. They use a word that the source of it all is beyond intellect, and not beyond human intellect. And this might be hard to understand. Beyond godly intellect. Because intellect only understands certain things. It's the nature of intellect. Right? So when you talk about godly intellect, you're talking about a certain aspect of godly reality that down here expresses itself as in what you and I call intellect. What intellect looks like up there, we don't know. But it's still a separate and unique expression of godly reality called intellect. And what can intellect understand? All sorts of stuff. But what are those things called? Ideas. Intellect's good at understanding ideas. What's Yosef said Tzvi's going to play with the air conditioning. At some point, Tzvi's going to play with it. What I knew that you were a kohen, but I didn't know that you were also a prophet. I think that's very impressive. That all those infinite levels of godly light exist in order for you and I to be able to serve God down here. Right? And up there in Atzmus, up there in God's essence, however this works we don't understand, because I'll tell us this is what happened. He had what's called a taiva for dir b'tachtonim. That means he had something that can't be understood by intellect. It's called a taiva. That's why that word is used. And that means it's even, as we were in the middle of explaining, that means that even it's beyond God's intellect, because intellect can only understand certain things. What is intellect good at? Understanding ideas. What does intellect have nothing to say about? Meaning, it might think about them if it has experienced them, right? But intellect can't really explain what an emotion is, because an emotion is not an idea, it's a feeling. Now, the fact that you and I have these feelings, we can talk about them with words and try to explain them with words, but we don't do a particularly good job, right? I mean, how many poems are there that have been written in the history of humankind trying to describe love? How good a job do they do? Well, the ones that might resonate to you if you read them are the ones that are describing love in a way that you've experienced it. But if they're describing it in a way that you haven't experienced it, you don't really understand what he's talking about, because you can't describe intellectually an emotional experience. Now, again, if you're describing that experience to people who have had it, so then that might conjure up in them an appreciation of that emotion. Say that. But if someone who's never experienced love, he doesn't believe in it, because you can't prove love in a laboratory. You can prove all sorts of ideas in laboratories, but you can't prove emotions in a laboratory. You might be able to be aware of the existence of emotions in a laboratory, but even that is only because you believe in the existence of emotions. So if someone tells you, oh no, I know that love exists because they can hook someone up and they test their whatever, all sorts of interesting physiological phenomena that are happening in this person. And when someone they love walks in the room, all sorts of things happen that don't happen when before that person walked in the room. Okay. When someone they what? Love. What's that? I don't believe in that. You're making it up. Can you do the same thing with spiritual experience? Of course. Does everybody believe in the existence of spiritual experience? No. There are these people who call themselves atheists, so to speak. Okay? Whether they really believe that, okay, that's a separate issue, right? But they'll tell you they don't believe in the existence of God. Why not? Well, it's really funny. The reason they say that is because you can't prove his existence. Right, exactly. You can't prove his existence. You can't prove the existence of love in a laboratory either. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist. If you've experienced love, you believe in love. You don't believe in it, you experience it. If you've never experienced love, you probably don't believe in it. Right? Look around the world. There seem to be some people that don't believe in love. Right? Okay. And there's also people that don't believe in God. Why? They've never experienced godliness. So... And they'll say you can't prove them in a laboratory. They're right, 100%. You can't prove the existence of God in a laboratory. How are you supposed to do that? It's beyond intellect. You can only deal with ideas in a laboratory, right? So certain ideas can be shown to be true in a laboratory. Meaning, I think that the way phenomena works is such and such and such and such and such and such. And I'm going to plug everything into my computer and see if it all comes out. And sure enough, oh look at that! It all worked right. My equation worked. It explained what was going on or predicted what was going to happen. Okay, so that's pretty exciting for a scientist. Right? That's the way ideas work. But there's other things other than ideas. Right? The line that explains it best perhaps is, and it's a line that's good to remember, try to explain the color orange to someone who was born blind. You're not going to get very far, right? Because orange is not an idea. Orange is a visual experience. Once you've had the visual experience, you can sit in some office in Milan and talk about different colors of different materials and design women's clothing with that in mind, right? And be extremely creative and successful doing that. There's a lot of guys in that city who that's what they do, right? True. They've all seen mauve, because if they've never seen mauve, they can't discuss it and discuss about a slightly more subtle expression of the mauve. See, right? And they get all excited. So it goes on over there, right? For some reason, it's interesting, I don't know why, but for some reason, this was explained to me by a friend of mine who understands these sort of things, most design in fashion and automobiles comes from Italy. It's copied by the rest of the world afterwards, but Italians are the one who create the design of it. They just have a whoosh for that. I don't know what it is, right? Americans make things. Everything that has been invented in the last 120 years was invented by an American. Right? I think the radio was before that, right? So, because I was on Marconi Street the other day. So that was in Italy by a guy named Marconi. Okay, so he has a street in Milan. I assume he has a street in every Italian city, but he has a street in Milan, near the shuls, the old shuls. Okay. So that's the way ideas work. So therefore you can actually say about a Kadosh Baruch Hu that there's some aspect of godly reality beyond his intellect. Well, of course there is. Chochmah is a particular expression of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, but the essence of a Kadosh Baruch Hu is beyond any particular expression. So up there in the essence of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, for whatever reason, which the highest level of godly intellect can't explain to you or to itself, the Eibishter decided he wanted to do b'tachtonim, and he wanted you and I to make it, which means that our Aveda affects every aspect of reality between that taiva and physical reality. Everything in between only exists to get down to the place where you and I can get up early in the morning and learn Chassidus. Which is really quite astounding. And that's what the Rebbe is saying here. Hakavone bezehi, the pshat in the statement of Chazal, third line. Lo yirak lebriyas ha'olam. It's not only to the creation of the physical world. El lekol hagiluyim, all levels of godly light. Gama giluyim hachinaylim, even the highest levels of godly revelation. They exist ultimately. And again, we've talked about this before. We'll say it again because it's so important. The only thing that exists absolutely and necessarily is the essence of God, God himself. Every other aspect of reality, even the most powerful, incredible, transcendent level of infinite godly light only exists because God wants it to. It doesn't have to. He could decide, now I don't want it anymore, and it would stop existing. The only thing that can't happen to, so to speak, is Atzmus. Atzmus is just Atzmus. It is what it is. It's not a function of any will. It's just an existential reality that is. Where did it come from? It didn't. Why is it there? Don't know. What does it do? It's its purpose. Well, what was there before it? Nothing. Well, where did it come from? It didn't. Well, how to get there? Why is it there? It just is. What does it do? Keep asking the same questions over and over, and you'll never get an answer. Because the ultimate essence of a Kadosh Baruch Hu is completely and totally beyond understanding. Godly light by definition has a source. That's why we use the parable of light to describe that godly energy. What do we know about light? Physical light has a source. When you see a red dot on the wall, you look for the moron with his little thing shining his laser, right? There's got to be some moron in the room, right? Didn't get there by itself. It's the way it is. Right? Well, it's not always a moron. Just usually he shines it at people, which is moronic, right? But I mean, you might get a kick out of watching the light show up over there. Okay, fine. So even the highest levels of godly revelation only exist because God wants them to, and we don't understand what their purpose is, because they're not. There are certain levels of reality that are all about purpose. That's just what they are, right? And that's called chitzonius, external reality. So what's a car about? Purpose. Does a car have being? No, a car has no being. Does it exist? Yes, it exists. But its existence is completely within the context of what you and I would call purpose. It exists to get you from one place to another place conveniently, hopefully with some good air conditioning in the summer and some good heat in the winter. Right? Okay, that's what it exists for. If it stops doing that, then usually it is junked. Unless it's kept somewhere where you can, use it for an extra storage space. Right? Okay. Because a car doesn't have any being. A person has being, but also function. We do stuff. But I wouldn't say that's the most important part of us. The most important part of us is that we are alive, we exist. God gave us true being, not true being like his, but real being. Right? And that's an amazing thing. That's why you don't just off a person if he happens to not be particularly functional anymore, which is a going trend in the world, right? Someone sent me one of those things, I don't know what they're called, but those little things, those funny things that they send you. So it had 3 pictures. Someone holding a British flag, my knee hurts, whatever it was. My knee hurts, holding a British flag. And the next box said, we'll see you in 18 months. You'll have an appointment with the doctor in 18 months. Okay, National Health Service. Second one was a guy with an American flag. That will be $67,000. Then a guy with a Canadian flag. Have you considered death? Welcome to the Canadian medical system. Over 3% of death in Canada is medically assisted. That's heavy. Where's that come from? A complete lack of appreciation of being. If all you're into is function, well, they're not functioning anymore, just off them. All right? Spartans, right? Greeks, wonderful Greeks, foundation of Western society, Western, whatever they call it, civilization, thank you. Western civilization, a baby born somewhat not 100%, just throw them on the rocks. An adult, not exactly useful anymore, get rid of them, a burden on society. Canadian medical system, government medical system, old people are a burden on the medical system, right? They cost money. Off them. Sit in a nice, sophisticated way and discuss with the family the benefits of this and that, and get a social worker and get da-da-da-da. Right? It's done in a very sophisticated way. But if you happen to have an old person that you love who lives in Canada, you are terrified that they might end up in a hospital because they won't get out. I have a 102-year-old mother who, Baruch Hashem, has managed to stay out of hospitals. It's scary. Her younger brother passed away about 2 years ago. Great guy, he was a good guy. And I wonder, I don't know. But who would ever have thought of something like this 10 years ago? I wonder if, did he die or did they kill him? I don't know. I'm not sure. But it was Canada, medical system. He was, 97. He was in the hospital. Did they sit around with the family and convince them that it's a good idea? I don't know what happened, but that's heavy. Where does that come from? That comes from chitzonius. What's chitzonius? Chitzonius is the lack of appreciation of panemius. What's panemius? Being. What's chitzonius? Function. So what's the function of all these incredibly powerful, infinite levels of godly light? Unknown. Do they have a function? Well, yeah, on some level, they're the source of a next level, which is the source of the next level, which is the source of the next. But they're not about function. They happen to do that, but that's not how you define them in any way, shape, or form. right? You define them in terms of their being, infinite, transcendent, godly light. Somehow they do something, but that's not in any way, shape, or form important in terms of their definition, right? People can get caught up in describing themselves in terms of what they do. I had a student who was once asked about tshuva, and he was asked on a college campus that he went to talk to, which is the college where he learned, and then he went back as a specimen of a religious Jew. And they asked him, well, what do you think about women having careers? So he said, I don't think anybody should have a career. Why are women any different than men? People shouldn't be defined by what they do. They should be defined by who they are. I have to make a living, okay? But say to make a living. But don't have a career. You want to be a doctor? That's a wonderful thing. Wonderful way to make a living, but hopefully you're being a doctor because you're interested in helping people. It happens to be they also pay you so you can live. Right? Or a lawyer, same thing. Right? Which was a very powerful statement that he made. A good answer to the question. Men also shouldn't have careers. Men should have jobs. Everybody has to have a job. And the job might be a job that's so enjoyable and actually has real importance to the world and other people. There's jobs like that, which are really very special jobs to have. But even that, unless it's something extremely important, you're not going to define yourself in terms of that. Because that's chitzonius. Usually, not always. There are certain jobs that aren't chitzonius. They're also panemius. Mm-hmm. So even the highest levels of reality, what they do, we're not sure, but because they're all about being and not function, that being said, they serve some function in the context of getting from Atzmus down to Elam Hazah, down to get this world. By virtue of the descent of the Yud Gimel Midas Rachamim, Mimkeimam, from their place above, so to speak. What's that? Heichel Malchusei, his palace, right? King's in the field. Where did he leave? He left his palace. What's the mushal for? What's that a mushal for? Yud Gimel Midas Rachamim, being revealed amongst us in Elul. L'mayla mishtalshus, beyond the four worlds, a level of godly light that's extremely transcendent and powerful. L'sada, down into the field, down into this world. Bichdei, why? What was the purpose of that revelation? So to a certain degree, you can actually say, what's the purpose of the level of godly reality called the Yud Gimel Midas Rachamim? Now that level of transcendent godly light, we actually can define their purpose. What is the purpose of that level of godly reality? You know. You've learned it.
To get us forgiveness.
Wrong word.
Cleanse us.
Never, at no point did the Rebbe talk about forgiveness in this Maamer. This is not about guilt. Didn't mention the word once. Tshuva. That he mentioned. Right? The Yud Gimel Midas Rachamim, that level of godly, and I'm going to say something a little crazy, but in all fairness, that's what we've learned up until now. That level of godly reality exists in order to be revealed down here and arouse in you and I a desire to do tshuva. That's why that level of reality exists. So actually, there's a level of transcendent godliness, infinite godly light, or ein sof Baruch Hu Mamish, right? That's how the Rebbe described L'mayla miseder ishtalshus, beyond the light that's responsible for the creation of the worlds. Right? That level of godly light, that level, we do know what its purpose is. To arouse in you and I a desire to be connected to who we really are. So what if it does that, so to speak? Not so to speak, what if that happens? Okay. So generally, when something fulfills its purpose, what happens to that reality? It's elevated to a higher state because it's connecting to its source, which is higher than it. Wow. Can we learn Chassidus and not daven in the room? I'm sorry for being annoying.
Sorry.
Okay? Davening is one thing, learning Chassidus is another, and if I'm doing both together, I'm not doing a very good job at either. Unless I'm doing a really good job at one, and then I'm not doing the other at all. Right. So why is there a revelation of Yud Gimel Sarachim in the Soda? Bichdei le'erer u'legalois harotzen apnimi b'Yisrael, in order to arouse and reveal the inner desire of every Jew, which is that we want Elokus. Therefore, what? Mizgala behem, it's revealed in them, the Yud Gimel Sarachim, shekavana behem, the intention of their existence, bishvil Yisrael, is for the sake of Yisrael. Oh, now the Rebbe is going to say something quite astounding, like we said at the beginning of the paragraph. Sheshur Shem hu ba'atzmus. What's the source of the Yid? Atzmus, the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's the source of the Yid. What's the source of the Yud Gimel Sarachim? Some very, very, very powerful level of infinite godly light. What's a higher level? Atzmus or infinite godly light? You shouldn't have to think when I ask that question. It should be so automatic.
Infinite godly light.
Infinite godly light is higher than Atzmus?
Atzmus.
No, wrong. Atzmus. Atzmus is beyond light, right? Light is an infinite expression of godly reality. Atzmus is beyond infinite. It's the source of it all. It's the only thing that has absolute existence. I'm glad we went over it again today, and I'll go over it another 5 times until we get it. The essence of God is the only thing that has absolute existence and must be. Everything else has relative existence. It exists because God wants it to, not because it has to. Atzmus, the essence of the Eibishter, just is. Where did it come from? I don't know. No one knows. It just is. Why is he there? Don't know. We can go through it again, but I don't want to bore you. Where did the Eibishter come from? Where did the Eibishter come from? It just is. Well, how did he get there? Was there before him? There's no before him. What do you mean there's no before him? Everything has a before them. Everything but him. Oh, so not only, what do we say about godly light? Or ein sof. What don't we say about it? Ein tchilo, has no beginning. Has a beginning. All levels of light have a beginning. All levels of light have a source in a level higher than them. So to speak, in some place in non-time, there was a decision to bring this level of reality into being. Poof! This level of light shows up. Etzem, the essence of God, didn't show up. Just is. Because it doesn't have a beginning either, which is completely impossible for us to understand. Can't wrap our head around that. Okay, that's why it says about one level of God, Leis Machshava Tfisa Bechlal, no thought can comprehend him. Infinite godly light, you and I can discuss it. We're discussing Yud Gimel Sarachim. Finite reality, well, that we certainly can wrap our head around. What do Chazal say about the world? Just like the Neshama fills the body, so God fills the world. Okay. You think this all exists just by virtue of itself? Don't be silly. There's godly energy that's giving this thing existence. Just like you exist by virtue of yourself? No. You're alive by virtue of yourself? No. You have this energy in you called neshama, and that's what gives you life. And if, God forbid, that neshama leaves, so then that body is in existence, but it's no longer alive. Okay. So there's one thing that's not part of that whole marechet, that whole reality. That's called the essence of the Eibishter. Okay, where are you and I from? There. Our neshama, where's it from? There. Where's Yud Gimel Yisarachimim from? A lower level, so to speak. Infinite godly light. Something beyond anything you and I can imagine, but relative to Atzmus? Okay, so what's the purpose of Yud Gimel Yisarachimim? Is to arouse in you and me the appreciation of the fact that we're rooted in Atzmus. That's interesting, right? It arouses in you and I an appreciation of a level of connection that's beyond it itself. The Yud Gimel Yisarachimim. So, you can't do this in physicality, but so to speak, here's Atzmus. Here's Yud Gimel Yisarachimim. Yud Gimel Yisarachimim shine down here in this world and affect you and I. And so what does it do to you and I? Bring about in us an appreciation of the fact and an experience of the fact that we exist here. But wait a minute, Yud Gimel Yisarachimim was down here, so to speak, in crass physical terms. Well, that's what they do. That's the purpose of the Yud Gimel Yisarachimim. So then what's going to happen to the Yud Gimel Yisarachimim if they fulfill that purpose? They'll be elevated to a higher level. So when something fulfills its purpose, it's elevated to its source. That's the idea. Okay, so let's see what the Rebbe says. So the whole purpose of Kavona Behem, the intention of the existence of the Yud Gimel Mizrachim would be Shvil Yisrael, Sheshorsham Ubatzmus, V'yesh L'kasher Zeh. Therefore, we can connect this idea. The Rebbe that's the end of that explanation. Now the Rebbe is going to teach it to us in an even deeper and more powerful way. But that what? When you and I do tshuva and Elul, we elevate not only ourselves and the world around us, we elevate the Yud Gimel Mizrachim, because the existence of that level of godly light is simply to bring about the change in you and I, and it succeeded. So it's elevated, fulfilled its purpose, which means it connects more powerfully to its source. And what we're going to see later in the Maamer is when the Yud Gimel Mizrachim shine, so to speak, on us, and therefore arouse in us a desire to connect to our true source and the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they're incorporated in that relationship, and they themselves are elevated to be connected to the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is their true source. Now the Rebbe explains this in terms of a very, very amazing pasuk. Kehelis, Shlomo Melech, who said a lot of pretty amazing things. V'yesh l'kasher zeh ma shekosav melech l'soda nevad. This pasuk can be explained in different ways. Let's see how the Rebbe explains it. The melech to the field, ne'evad. So now ne'evad can be worked. It can be subservient, like an evid. Now, what are we're gonna, at the simplest shot in the pasuk is the melech is somehow subservient to the field. How is the melech subservient to the field? A real king, how is he subservient to the field? Simple shot.
Depends on the field.
Where does he get his bread? From the field. Right? Not true? Right? The melech eats the wheat that grows in the field. So the melech's the melech of the field. I get it, but ultimately the melech is subservient to the field to the extent that the field doesn't need the melech. But the melech needs the field. Okay, that's interesting. That now, before we go any further, what idea did the Rebbe just tell us? That the Yud Gimel Midas Rachamim are elevated by virtue of their revelation in Elul. Okay, what's the mushal that explains that idea? And if we don't know that by now, having learned this Maamer, I don't know where you've been. What's the mushal that explains the idea of the Yud Gimel Midas Rachamim being revealed in this world? What's the parable?
You get excited to go to
No! What's the parable?
Son?
King in the field. Thank you very much. We haven't been learning about a king in a field here for the last 3 weeks, for goodness sake. Review what you're learning. The king in the field, right? What's the king in the field mean? Yud Gimel Midas Rachamim is revealed in Eilam Hazeh. Oh, so who's the king? In the Nimshal, who's the king?
Yud Gimel Midas Rachamim.
Yud Gimel Midas Rachamim. What's the Soda? Eilam Hazeh. Oh, what did we just say? The Yud Gimel Midas Rachamim, by virtue of their revelation in Eilam Hazeh, are elevated to a higher place. The king needs the field. That's what that pasuk just said. What's that saying? Yud Gimel Midas Rachamim derive benefit from the field. The king derives benefit by being revealed in the field. Oh, right? Wow. Okay, well, that's what the Rebbe just said. Now he said, okay, I'm going to show you this is in a pasuk. Shlomo Melech already said it. What's Chassidus do? Make up ideas? No, it just reveals what's already there. The Friedrich Rebbe was once sitting it was actually in Austria. There you go, Austria, the prototype of Chassidically challenged. All right, so he was sitting in a hotel lobby in Western Europe. Western Europe, Bechlal, was a place of tremendous darkness relative to Eastern Europe. Eastern Europe was where Yiddishkeit was flourishing and Chassidus was flourishing. Western Europe was a disaster. Western Europe, they all figured they were smarter than God. In Eastern Europe, they were smarter than that. So he was sitting in a hotel lobby, and some people were asking him questions about Chassidus. So the Rebbe took a lamp. What do lamps have? I haven't seen a lamp for a very long time. I think they've gone out of fashion, but whatever. The only place I've ever seen lamps is in hotel rooms. Hotel rooms still have lamps, but they're very annoying hotel rooms because the only source of light is the lamp, so it's never light enough in the room to actually get anything done. I've never quite understood this. Why don't they have a light up there also? So if you want to actually see what's in the room, you can choose that option also, but you never get that in a hotel room. You only have lamps. Okay. So how does a lamp work? There's a light, and there's usually a shade on the lamp, right? Called lamp shade. Isn't that an amazing name for that thing that shades the light? It's called a lamp shade. And it's usually shaped like that, right? So the light spreads out below it. And okay, so now that means not theoretically, that means the light shining up from the lamp is more concentrated. Okay, so the Rebbe took the lamp shade, the lamp, and he tilted it, and he shone the light so they could notice the light, because he was moving it around. He shone the light on the ceiling. What would you see on the ceiling of a hotel in Central Europe 100 years ago? You'll still see it there, if that hotel is still around. And you'll see it on the what was the name? Showroom in Washington, because it was also built 120 years ago. What will you see on the ceiling? A ceiling like that?
Designs.
Designs and plaster Paris figurines, right? Because people once had a little class. Okay. So the Rebbe was shining the light on all the stuff up there. And he asked them, do you see those things on the ceiling? He said, no. He said, did you notice them before? He said, no. He said, by virtue of shining the light on, did I bring them into being? He said, no, they were there. But you didn't see them. Right, so that's Chassidus. Chassidus shines a light on aspects of the Torah that you didn't see before. It doesn't make anything up. It just shines a light that reveals things that you might not have seen before. That was the Rebbe's mashal for Chassidus. So here Shlomo Melech said this pasuk. So now, how everybody said pshat in the pasuk until Chassidus came along, I don't know. I mean, there were people who knew what pshat in the pasuk was anyway, right? But your average person didn't. Now you and I, average people, actually get to understand this pasuk in a very, very sophisticated way. Shafilu HaMelech, even the king. Now they're just explaining simple pshat in the pasuk. Shafilu HaMelech, she'ein l'mayla mimenu. There's no one higher than the melech. There's no one more powerful than the king in the realm. Nevad l'soda is, so to speak, subservient to the field. Why? Ki mimenu mechiyasa, because from the field is his sustenance. Right? And if you look at footnote 36, so it says that's the Ibn Ezra's pshat in the pasuk. That's a simple pshat in the pasuk. That the king is subservient to the field because the king requires the field to give him life. Ulefi mashikosu b'zayar, the Zayar explains that line in Koheles. Man melech, who's the melech? Now, obviously, simple pshat in the pasuk is a fleshly king, but the panemius is the King of Kings. Man melech, da melech ilo. That is the lofty king, meaning Kadosh Baruch Hu, the ischaber lesoda, that's connected to the field. So now keep reading. Based on that, yesh lemar, what can one say? Shegam mechiyase kaviyachol, so to speak, the sustenance shall melech ilo, of the lofty king, well, al yedei sheyered v'nimshach lesoda. It's by virtue of the fact that he goes down and is drawn into the field. So now, melech ilo in our Maamer, melech ilo would be yud gimel midas rachamim. Why is there an existence of that level of godly light, which is a function of the Eibishter's Rotzain and nothing else? The only reason that light exists is because God wants it to. And what's its purpose? Its purpose is to come into Elam Hazeh and somehow arouse in you and I a desire to do tshuva. And it was that level of godly light was revealed to Moshe Rabbeinu when?
On Har Sinai.
No, not on Har Sinai. No. When was the Yud Gam Yisrachim revealed to Moshe Rabbeinu?
Yom Kippur?
After the sin of the golden calf, yes. Right? What?
Isn't that still December?
He was on a different mountain, right? I mean, maybe it doesn't say he went up on Har Sinai. It said he went up on a hill, and the Eibishter was in some, crack up there. Might it have been Har Sinai? But when you say Har Sinai, you mean Matan Torah. This was not Matan Torah. This was a different event, right? It was a different event. An event that came as a result of our wrongdoing, which happened when Moshe Rabbeinu was up on Har Sinai, no question. Right? But there were a lot of mountains around there. Where he walked up, it might be there's a Maamer Chazal that says it was Dafka Har Sinai was standing on. I have no idea, but that, again, it's not, when we say Har Sinai, we mean Matan Torah. No, it wasn't Matan Torah. It's later, quite a bit later. When was it?
40 days later. Elul.
It was after 40 days of Elul. It was after Yom Kippur. Moshe Rabbeinu came down, went up and down and up and down and up and down. The last 40 days were the 30 days of Elul and the 10 days of Tishrei. Came back down with having successfully brought about the kapara, the atonement for the Jewish people, and it was after that he asked the Eibishter to show the Eibishter himself. And what did to Moshe? And what did the Eibishter show Moshe? The mystery of tshuva. And what's that? Yud Gimel Yisrach. Okay.
That was the back of the head that he saw?
So the Eibishter told him those psukim. It says in the psukim, Hashem kel racham v'chan, right? Which we said today in Slichas. We're going to say it quite a bit in the next 10 days. Right? Where are those words from? Shmeis. Right? They're from Exodus. Right? It's Chumash. Right? It's Gemara and Baba Metzia. No. Those words God said. Teaching Moshe how to teach the Jewish people how to do tshuva. Connect to the king. Who's the king? Yud Gimel Yisrachim. Comes into the field. And by virtue of that, the king is elevated. Yesh Leimer shegam michiyose kaviyachol. Just a couple more lines and we'll stop. Gam kaviyachol. Actually, do one more line. Shegam michiyose kaviyachol. His vitality, his sustenance, that which is michayeh, gives him life. Shel melech ilah, of the Yud Gimel Yisrachim. Who al yadeshi yored v'nim shach l'sadas, by virtue of the fact that he comes down to the field. Kal yadei zeh, by virtue of this, what's revealed? Mizgala shakavana bay, the intention for the existence of the king, meaning this level of godly reality called the Yud Gimel Yisrachim. Why does such a level of godly reality exist? Why is there such a level of godly light and revelation? Bishvil Yisrael, for the sake of Yisrael, which will help them do tshuva and help them connect to who they really are. And where do they come from? Sheshorshim ba'atzmos, that their source is in the essence of the Kodesh Baruch Hu. Wow. Okay. And what we'll see tomorrow is Isod of Isod. There's a positive field and there's a negative field. Right. There's a negative field. What's the negative field? Esav, Ish Soda. What's Esav called?
Man of the field.
Ish Soda, the man of the field. Wow. Okay, so there's a field that's not so good, and there's a field that's good. Okay, and obviously we have a lot to do with that. I had a very interesting experience yesterday. Experience I've never had before and hope to never have again. Got off the plane and it was, you had to walk downstairs to go to a bus. So there was an experience with that also because I flew a GN on the way home, and I'm a gold in a GN and I get 4 upgrades to business. So I actually got 2 business flights on the way home, which was very comfortable, I must say. And GN Airlines, when they do that in Athens, they let only business class off. They have their own private bus. So there's 10 of us on the bus, and we drive away, and all the plebeians Nebuch are waiting behind us. So I walked out of the plane. My hat and kippah went flying all the way past the plane. I got out the front, all the way past. I went, whoa! Now what do I do? So I managed to get down to the bottom of the stairs, and I saw where they were. So there's a guy standing there, says, don't go over there. They don't want you anywhere near the plane. And one of the technicians, Baruch Hashem, he picked it up and brought it over to me. The whole bus was waiting for me because that was the business bus. And but wow, that was really that was a less than enjoyable experience. The wind was like crazy as soon as you walked out of the plane. Whoosh. So all the way, mainly my hat, but also my yarmulke, everything, all the way down there.
Yeah, at least they got it for you.
Yeah, Baruch Hashem. I wasn't expecting the yarmulke. I saw the hat,
Yeah.
but the yarmulke was in it. Baruch Hashem. So
At least you got it back.
yes, a little worse for wear, but
Well, yeah.
that's okay. This is really ridiculous. This.